Buckeye Talk coming to you from Ohio State's off week. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com along with Stephen Means, and we just got done talking to Ryan Day in his kind of usual Tuesday press conference, and then sort of a surprise visit from Kerry Coombs. We weren't sure we were going to get anybody else from the staff or even the rest of the team today for sure, and then that was kind of a revelation. First time we've been able to talk to him since the Oregon game when he had play calling duties, after which he had play calling duties moved over to Matt Barnes and sort of changed his role from being the overall defensive coordinator and having all those duties. You got the first question for Kerry. It lasted about your question lasted about 6 words, and his response lasted about 6,000. It seemed like, but we appreciated that, and it was the old Kerry Coombs. I mean, it was everything you expect Kerry Coombs to be in terms of like fiery and. Made it clear that he is still has some pride here, and that he didn't necessarily like the demotion. And I don't know how else to describe it except to call it a demotion, but that if he had not handled it in a different way, which everyone has said has been a very professional response and a courteous response, then he would have felt like a little bit disingenuous and felt like he called himself, I would have been a liar to all the guys that I've been coaching for over the years. But what was, I guess, your number one takeaway from what Kerry Coombs came in and said this today, which seemed like kind of an unleashing of things he'd probably been wanting to say publicly for the last month?
Yeah, I feel like my question could have just been vent, and let's see where it goes. I think 2 things. One, the way he's handled it has allowed what Marcus Williamson did last week and all those other veterans who have had to take a step back in roles of young guys. If Kerry Coombs handles his situation the wrong way, so do those players. So I think that mattered, but I think what's even more important is he's got at most 9 more games as an assistant coach here. Nothing from what he said makes it seem like he's going to be back on this staff next year. Whether it's for the remainder of the season or the way he vented, basically, I didn't like what happened. It could have been kind of basically saying it could have been done a different way. It didn't need to be public because that's kind of hard on your family and that's hard on yourself. So he wishes it wasn't public. But everything he said to my question and to every question after that had anything to do with that under that umbrella made it seem like this is his last season here, and then he's going to go off and do whatever else.
Yeah, guys usually don't mind it being public when they get big jobs and when they do successful things like go to the national championship game and win them. So I don't really care that he doesn't like that it's public. I mean, he's got a very public job. That's what this is. He definitely even said at one point, was asked about how he's handling this, and says, for the rest of this season, I'm going to be this and this, and I'm going to be working and grinding and all those sort of things. Everything you would expect Kerry Coombs to say, but he did make a point of saying for the rest of this season, which I thought was interesting. And we got a lot of conversation both with him and Ryan Day about the structure. I mean, I asked a few questions of Ryan Day about how this is sort of working together. And I asked, is this basically, do you have now a run game coordinator, pass game coordinator? Other teams have done that. Is it changing how you want to look at this in the future? And he kind of said no. He doesn't really call it the structure that way, but he said he did give us some insight into some other changes they've made, such as, they're meeting together more as a defense, and apparently something that wasn't necessarily happening when Kerry Coombs was in charge. They're meeting together more as a defense, the whole team, top to bottom, and giving guys, I think, a better understanding of how it works front to back, and that's maybe affecting how they play on the field. He said he's getting good feedback from the players in that regard. As it comes to what Kerry Coombs' role is going forward, I thought it was interesting, too, that he said it was his decision to go up to the box, and that he is seeing the game better up there. He made some jokes about how, he doesn't get to hug all the players now. The only person he has to hug is Kevin Wilson, and that's not as fun. But he admitted, like, hey, this is the first time I'd been up there since he started at University of Cincinnati, and even that was sort of a brief thing. And now he's gone up there, and he says he can see the game better. And just that piece of the communication – now, Matt Barnes was up there before. It wasn't like they didn't have anybody up there before. But just that piece of the communication, and maybe because of his experience as a guy who knows the secondary, is something that's helping them even more right now.
I think that was interesting, too. He said it was his idea to go up to a box because we kind of wondered that. Is he going to go up to the box? And I'm pretty sure the conversation went on shorthand, hey, maybe I should go up to the box and call plays. No. You should just go to the box. Not call plays, just go to the box. Let's just do that, and then it was kind of like, I should do this. Oh, wait, you want me to do that as well? But yeah, I think you're right. Whether Ryan Day wants to call it a run game coordinator and a pass game coordinator or not, that's basically what's happening here. Yes, Matt Barnes is making the final call there as the in fact to defensive coordinator, but it is more of a collaborative effort because it has to be at this point because what you were doing when it was just Kerry Coombs calling the plays wasn't working regardless of who the person was.
I think it was collaborative before, and it's still collaborative, just in a different way. Just the deck has been shuffled a little bit. And the important thing out of all of this is, I guess the most important thing is whether the team plays better or not, whether that change actually got the result that Ryan Day wanted, which he said it did today. You know, he doesn't want to declare it a rousing success yet, and part of that is because the teams that they've now played these last few weeks are Akron and Maryland and Rutgers, and those are not the teams that your season will be judged by. Those games are still coming up, and you don't want to get ahead of yourself as far as how well you're going to publicly state that this has worked for you. But it's trending in the right direction, and he thinks that just the way they restructured it has helped that. I think the other important part, though, is with other coaches, with younger coaches, with guys who don't have Kerry Coombs' personality, this might have been a problem. Yeah. You can see how guys who are maybe not as secure in their coaching legacy in some ways could have made this a problem on the staff, and it could have been something that trickled down through the players instead of the opposite. And again, I don't want to get too Pollyannish with this, and there is still a long way to go. But I think there is something to what you were saying as far as do players pay attention to how you handle something and how you talk to them about it, and then how that affects the way that their own mentality for the rest of the season.
I'll say this and then we can get out of here before this gets long. To that point, Greg Schiano, Alex Grinch 2018. Alex Grinch came here because he thought he was calling the plays, and then Greg Schiano came along too, and so now he's sharing that job. Alex Grinch didn't handle that well, and that's part of the reason why it showed up on the field and why that secondary was so bad. So yeah, Kerry Coombs taking a different approach, and it seems like it's helping this defense, and guys are accepting their roles because they see their leader doing it.
We were texting out as much as we could about what Kerry Coombs said today. So 614-350-3315 if you want those updates in just about real time going forward. They come right to your phone. 2-week free trial, then $3.99 a month after that. Obviously, Ohio State is off this week, but we're going to have daily intel coming to you both through the texts and on the podcast and at cleveland.com/OSU.